Well, welcome back to the channel. Let's talk about how to not blow your car up on Rocky Mountain Race Week. So let's talk for a minute about Rocky Mountain Race Week. Didn't exactly go as planned. Go figure. Usually you always miss something when you're building a new car. Untested, no sleep, things happen. This one I caused myself. So it's important to check mechanical timing on any high performance engine. If you're going to make north of 1,000 horsepower, everything needs to be right. It needs to be spot on. So we got the car running. It seemed like it was down on power. I proceeded to check the mechanical timing, pulled all the plugs out, put a piston stop in, rotated the motor over, and marked the balancer, both directions. Well, when I go to take the piston stop out, surprise, surprise, it has a couple tight spots. And I was a little concerned because I knew something was wrong, but the piston stop had to come out of the spark plug hole. Even if I pulled the head off, like, you're gonna have to back it out. I didn't really think what is causing this. I just knew there was a small issue and didn't listen to my gut and just took it out anyways. Get it out, I thought to myself, maybe it got into the valve. I still had the rockers hooked up when I was turning the motor over, and I thought maybe it touched the valve, but the piston stop looks like it's damaged. Maybe it's the softer material, maybe the valve's fine. Stainless valve, steel bolt. I don't know why, but I lied to myself. So I think that's what contributed to it being down on power. I pulled the motor, took it to Skog and Dickey. They took everything apart, analyzed everything. Sure enough, the valve was bent, the exhaust valve on the #1 cylinder. And they were able to fix it. They ordered a valve. Luckily, valves are no longer on national back order, at least for one. It may still be the case for if you're trying to order 16. So it should be going back together. We changed a couple little things, put some billet rocker stands on the motor, just the push rod length. Should be ready to pick up next week. We're going to see if we can get it back together and try to hit the race in Amarillo. Amarillo's got a King of the Panhandle race with an Outlaw Street 30-mile cruise, which my car is completely set up for. With the big fans, big radiator, overdrive transmission, like it's not an issue at all, especially since I don't have to drag around a drag week trailer behind it. So it shouldn't be an issue there. We just need to make some passes in the car to see if it's back to making decent horsepower. It seems like it's down on power. I'm new to the turbo game. I come from nitrous world for years and years. I've still got nitrous kits laying around everywhere, but I guess I assumed it was going to make more power. You get caught up in the numbers and bench racing and what it takes to go a certain speed, a certain ET, and you calculate the weight of the car and how much power, and it's not always the case. You look on the internet and you find the guys that are running the top 1% of the class, and you just assume that your build first time out is going to be that caliber, and that's not always the case. So we knew it was down on power, but it's a smaller turbo than what Joe's normally run. It's a smaller engine than what he's typically run, so we knew we were going to have to lean on it, and we thought it should have been making another 300 or 400 horsepower. So maybe with the bent valve, that was obviously contributing to being down one cylinder. Maybe with the push rods not being the correct length. I apparently measured those inaccurately and put too much preload on them. But now they've got the right ones in there. Kurt at Skog and Dickey, he's a GM guru, and he went through the whole motor top to bottom and checked the degree of the cam and spring pressure and installed height, just to verify everything you get from the vendors. You know, you take for granted that the stuff is what you paid for, the specs you thought it needed, but that's not always the case. It's better to trust but verify yourself, or have somebody qualified and capable to verify it for you. So that's what I did. I took it back to them and had them go through it top to bottom, fix it. Should be ready to pick up next week. See if we can't make some passes. I know there's going to be some private test sessions coming up at Texas Motorplex, November, December timeframe, when the really good air hits. I don't know. I mean, I'm not like I'm looking for a record, but I would definitely like to go for a new best. That's the first time that car has ever been in the 9-second range. It went 10 flat 11 years ago when it ran with an all-motor setup and a manual transmission. So to run 980 with an automatic and a turbo wasn't super impressive for me. Granted, it was a new personal best, but it was a short-lived celebration once we found out the motor was hurt. So I'd really like to see something in the 8s relatively soon. I know every time you try to go a tenth faster, it seems like it's harder and harder, and it costs more and more money. It's just a vicious cycle of chasing need for speed. But the car is ultimately set up to run the 850 class. I think at 3,350 pounds, it's gonna take, I think, 1,300 horse. I don't know that turbo's got enough in it. So we'll just have to see. And maybe next season, if it's not enough, we go with a bigger motor and a bigger turbo. But I'm gonna run what I've got now and see if I can't get it dialed in. I'm really enjoying the car again. I put speakers back in the car and a radio in the car and cruising around town prepping for drag week. It was a lot of fun going to drive-thrus or going to run errands, and you know, I've got the key fob so I can lock the doors and roll up the windows and roll down the windows, pull the T-tops off, and listen to the stereo while I'm driving around. So it's really cool. It brings back a lot of memories where that car came from, being bone stock in 14 seconds to slowly chipping away to a 10-second little race car, and now it should be a pretty decent caliber race car. I've got a lot of memories with that car, so I'm really excited to get it back going and finally make some passes and try to get some seat time and get comfortable with the car. One of the biggest things I've been thankful with this build and this project is all the support from vendors, technical support that they provide, friends, especially Joseph. Golly, the dude is a wealth of knowledge, and he's got a ton of experience with racing very fast caliber cars. I remember years ago when we were in Houston with our slow LT1s trying to run 10s, watching Big Rick's I think it was an 8-second Trans Am at the time, and it was the fastest LT1 car in the country, and we got to see it make a pass right there at Houston. And I remember standing on the sideline looking at the caliber of car and just being a kid, you know, looking up to an idol, going, man, one day I'm gonna have one of those. And so it was humbling to turn wrenches on Joe's Trans Am and mess with the suspension and test and do research and just progressively make the car faster. It was very rewarding when we finally got that car to run 490, because it was just lots of learning, lots of trial and error, reaching out, talking to people that have been there, done that, and just figuring out your own thing. Every car is a little different. They all have their own quirks, and they all need a little bit different setups. I've even noticed that between my Camaro and Joe's Trans Am, they're both 4th gen F bodies, but they're still different. So it's been a blessing to have those resources available. I think it's really important to network with people that are faster than you. It's probably no different than talking to somebody that's successful in business. You know, they're going to tell you to network and look to mentors and people that have got it figured out, and ask them for advice and feedback and grow your business. I think the same thing with racing. It's very much a team sport at this level. You can't do it by yourself. You've got to wear a lot of hats, being the chassis guy, the tuner, the fabricator, the welder, the engine builder. Like, it's a lot to be an expert at. So if you can be an expert at a couple of them and have a lot of people on your race team that can support the rest of those, it goes a long way and makes it easier to have a successful race program. So huge shout out to Aaron at Scoggin Dickey and those guys down there for getting me a motor, and especially with all the part shortages this pandemic has put on everybody. It's hard to get a motor built in any decent kind of timeline, but they knocked it out of the park and got me a motor before Rocky Mountain, and everything else was on me to get it going. But all the other vendors, Joseph, even Dave, those guys just always willing to help, killer work ethic, and glad to have them on my race team. So, but hopefully we'll get the car out to Amarillo on the 30th for that King of the Panhandle race, and see if we can go some rounds and make some passes, and see if we can't get a new personal best here in Amarillo right before Halloween. So thanks for tuning in. See you guys next time.